On this edition of Native Report, we travel to the Lac du Flambeau Nation in Wisconsin and attend their Wild Rice Festival and Powwow.
We then meet master birchbark canoe builder Wayne Valliere.
And we interview author Sharon Shuck about a speculative biography of her grandfather and why she wrote about him.
We also learn what we can do to lead healthier lives and hear from our elders on this edition of Native Report.
Production of Native Report is made possible by grants from the Blandin Foundation, the Duluth Superior Area Community Foundation, and the Shakopee-Mdewakanton Sioux Community.
Welcome to Native Report. I'm Rita Aspinwall. Thanks for tuning in.
And I'm Ernie Stevens. The streets of downtown Lac du Flambeau were filled with people, craft vendors, and information booths during their annual Wild Rice Festival. This family-oriented event offered visitors an opportunity to get a taste of Native American culture and offered something for everyone to enjoy while learning about Ojibwe culture.
There was a festive feeling in the air as the streets of downtown Lac du Flambeau bustled with activity as the community held their annual Wild Rice Festival. Vendors and information booths lined the street near the Waswaganing Indian Bowl as festival goers visited vendor and information booths, had a bite to eat, and visited with one another.
Today we're celebrating the harvesting of the wild rice that comes around every time this time of year. And so it's a community celebration that we have. Invite all our friends and neighbors to it and have a celebration for our community and anyone that wants to come. We have a fry bread and wild rice cooking contest. We have games for kids like hula hoop and egg toss contest. And later we're going to have a pie eating contest, which gets a little messy afterwards. This is a holistic event because we do a lot of education in healthcare, and community health is one of our partners. They have the one run walk the first thing in the morning at 9:30 for children, and then the 5K. And lots of good information and drawings. There's this activities happen like every half an hour, but there's lots of vendors here for anyone can come and have their arts and crafts and fry bread or Indian tacos and all those good things. It's a fun family day here. We have the beautiful lakes and trees, forests and everything here, just like a lot of the other communities, but we also have the culture here, that the Native culture has a lot to share and everybody can learn from it. It becomes a part of their life.
This celebration caps the summer tourist season for the Lac du Flambeau community, which has an estimated population of 2,400 band members and 1,000 non-natives who make Lac du Flambeau their home. In the summertime, that nearly triples with summer homeowners and tourists. Many come to the weekly powwows, and many are expected for today's powwow in the Waswaganing Indian Bowl. Waswaganing is Ojibwe for torch.
We had a great season this year. We had powwow every Tuesday night, and we had good crowds and had a good time. We did not have one rainout, which was pretty amazing. So somebody was putting the tobacco down. We might have up to 1,000 or 2,000 by the time the day's over. We may have 200 or 300, maybe 400 at the powwow.
We are at the Waswaganing Living Arts and Culture Center, and it is an amazing place that we can share our culture with people who come to visit our community, and also a way to promote the culture within our community, having people come and dance every week. People think of Native people as history in the past, and that's not true. We are a living culture. We are bringing back our language. We are still here, but there are not a lot of places that still do these things that I'm aware of anyway. So to be able to share that and do the things that our grandparents and their grandparents have done in this place is amazing. I've always loved being here and knowing that this is something that our people have done for about 60 years now, that we've been doing this.
Festival and powwow goers could also check out a replica of an Ojibwe village next to the powwow grounds. In addition to the happenings on the street and in the bowl, the day was made extra special with the launching of a birchbark canoe.
At 1 o'clock, Wayne Valliere has built a birchbark canoe with apprentices. We did that through the grant from Native Arts and with the sponsorship from our Indian Bowl Board and the Lac du Flambeau tribe. He's training other people because there's only 5 Native people that can do Ojibwe birchbark canoes in the nation. And we're lucky to have 2 of them here. And so he's going to launch it. We're going to do a launch for the first time to showcase it and to do the initial launch into the water.
The first word that comes to me is an Anishinaabe word, Mamaka-Daindum. What that means is amazing. The word for amazing, how it all came together on Wild Rice Fest, marking, honoring our Menomen Ikan and our wild rice beds. And also how the canoe, it marks, it's a signature of the environment, and from all the materials that we got from the environment in a good way, and also bringing awareness to the environment and how the environment needs to be taken care of, about not leaving a footprint in the environment, teaching the next generation the importance of our grandmother Earth. The canoe brings everybody together, from our very young children to our elders. A lot of life and culture happened around these canoes.
Lac du Flambeau is a great place to live, to work, to visit, and anytime you come here, you're truly welcome. Just a lot of good things happening here.
Lactose intolerance is a common condition that affects about 75% of the population worldwide. People with lactose intolerance have problems digesting dairy products, and the main symptoms are bloating, diarrhea, and abdominal cramps. People with lactose intolerance don't make enough of the enzyme lactase, which is needed to digest lactose. Lactose is a disaccharide, which means it is a carbohydrate that consists of 2 sugars, glucose and galactose. Almost everyone has the ability to digest lactose as babies and children. Many of us lose that ability as we age. Breast milk contains lactose, and lactose intolerance under the age of 5 is very rare. We absorb nutrients by breaking them down smaller and smaller. We chew food to make it into smaller particles, and once it goes into our stomach and intestines, stomach acid and enzymes from our digestive system break things into smaller and smaller particles. Eventually, they are small enough to float across the lining of the small intestine and into our bloodstream. Lactose is too big to float across that membrane, and it stays in the intestine. This pulls water from your body into the digestive tract and fills it up, causing the diarrhea. Once it reaches the large intestine, the lactose is fermented into short-chain fatty acids by bacteria in the gut. This causes bloating, gas, diarrhea, and abdominal cramps. If the enzyme lactase is present, it cuts the lactose into the individual molecules glucose and galactose. These are small enough to cross the intestinal lining into the bloodstream, where they will travel to the liver to be processed. No testing is needed to diagnose lactose intolerance. If someone is lactose intolerant, they will usually have symptoms within a few minutes of any dairy intake. There is lactose in milk, goat's milk, cheese, ice cream, yogurt, butter, and other foods. Some people can tolerate small amounts of dairy, and some people can tolerate yogurt. There are dairy products that have lactase added. There are important nutrients, including calcium in dairy products. These nutrients can also be found in other foods such as soy, almond, or oat milk. Canned fish with the bones are high in calcium, and there are quite a few plant foods that contain calcium. There are over-the-counter medicines with lactase in them, and these are in the form of pills that are chewed or drops that can be mixed in with dairy products. These do not have to be taken in advance and generally are taken with the first bite of dairy, and they work very well for most people. Some milk-based soups and other meals might be too much lactose for any amount of enzyme taken with the meal. As always, remember to call an elder. They've been waiting for your call. I'm Dr. Arnie Vinio, and this is Health Matters.
Wayne Valliere is skilled in many cultural arts, but he may be best known as a maker of birchbark canoes. He is one of only 5 master canoe builders in the Midwest and has constructed over 30 canoes in several communities. For Wayne, this craft isn't his to hold on to, but to share with all who are interested in the art of making canoes.
It is a warm August day in Lac du Flambeau, Wisconsin, as the sound of a wood planer can be heard from the back of Wayne Valliere's garage, where a partially built birch bark canoe is parked instead of a vehicle. Wayne, a master canoe builder, and his son are doing some work on the canoe this afternoon.
My name is Wayne Valliere, and I represent the Bear Clan. And been raised here in Lac du Flambeau, this place of many lakes. One of the cool things about our reservation is that culture is very much alive. The hunting, the gathering. These canoes carry a lot of culture. Everything we did as Anishinaabe was centered around the Wigwassa-Gimon. We brought it from the east to Madeline Island, and everything we did was out of birch bark canoe. We traveled with it. We went on the warpath with it. We went to our hunting grounds with it. We riced from them. We went to our berry patches in them, our trapping grounds, our netting, everything. So realizing in my travels that there aren't many master builders, though there's a lot of hobbyists, non-natives that call themselves, great craftsmen and all that, but they don't own it. That culture belongs to the Anishinaabe.
Wayne began his canoe building journey when he was 14, learning the craft from his elders. His brother followed the same path, and both are considered master canoe builders. It is rare to have 2 such individuals from the same community.
In the modern world, most people are using metal watercraft, but the original watercraft of the Anishinaabe people is, of course, the Wigwassa-Gimon or birch bark canoe. And in my childhood, there was a break, if you want to call it, a hiatus of sort in the construction of birch bark canoes in the community. The last of our local builders passed away in the 1950s. Part of our way of living is that we continue to utilize the tools of our ancestors. I've been able to teach some people what I've come to know. And then again, the idea is that we want to encourage young people to continue this, because again, this is what makes us Ojibwe. We can't just talk about being Ojibwe. Okay, what makes a Frenchman a Frenchman? Why are the Swedes Swedish? Okay, well, they have things in their culture that identify them as so, and so that's what we do. So wherever birch grows and Native people live, they build the canoe, but they have their own distinctive style. This style is indicative of this part of the world, right where we're at. So that's what we're trying to do, perpetuate our identity.
I've been involved in about 32 canoes. That's building with other people, that's building my own. Each canoe takes on a spirit of its own, because different hands touch it. People put their imprint, their life imprint into these canoes. So around these canoes, life happens. We have good stories, we have camaraderie that happens, friendships are made, and it's a meaningful exercise.
All natural materials were used in the construction of this canoe on the table, and it is much work to harvest the material.
Canoe building is broken down into 4 areas. First area is locating usable materials. The next area is harvesting usable materials. And the next area is processing the materials into building components. Then the last phase, of course, is the actual building of the canoe. It's one of the dilemmas we have today is that the birch bark is getting harder and harder to find because of deforestation. And not all bark will work. It has to pass a test. It has to be a certain thickness. The eyes have to be spread a certain width apart. You can't have lots of barks on it, thunderbirds on it. It has to be straight. And it has to be at least open up to at least 45 inches. So that's a big tree. As I'm hunting, as I'm berry picking, as I'm harvesting rice, as I'm sugaring, I always got my eye out for Wigwasanatik, for the birch tree. And we're 3/4 done here. We're actually building now, so we're going to be finishing up the sowing, Gushki Gwasawin, the sowing with the Watabin, the spruce root. We'll finish that up. Then we're going to install the new thwarts and pull the building form out. And we're already talking sealing. We'll seal the inside. Then the Waganaganan, the ribs, we'll form those in. Those dry a day, pull them out. Next day we put the sheathing in and the ribs in their final position. The last part is paddling.
The inaugural launch of the canoe happened during the community's Wild Rice Festival and celebration. The canoe measured 15 feet, and the largest one Wayne worked on was 18 feet long. He stresses there are teachings that go along with the building of a birch bark canoe.
A canoe this size is so buoyant, it'll hold a moose and a half and 2 grown men, and it'll still float. And one of the canoe this size, we actually tested it. We put 18 people in it, sitting on the gunwales and on the thwarts, just to see what it would hold, and it stayed up. But how many Chippewas can you fit in your canoe? We look at the bark. The bark by itself is very brittle and it'll crack. We look at the watub by itself. It's very brittle. It'll crack and break. We look at the cedar. The cedar by itself is very brittle and fragile. The pitch can be stretched in every direction. But when you put all of these things together, when I'm done with this canoe, we can take a buckateig and a hammer and we can beat on the side of it, and you're not going to damage it. The teaching is, by ourselves, we're weak. But when we stand together, when we work together, we're very much skawazit. We're very strong. And that's what these canoes teach us. And archaeologists once made a comment to me at UW-Madison, "Oh, those are wonderful primitive crafts." Well, I'm here to tell you that there is nothing primitive about birch bark canoe building. It's a highly evolved craft. We're very blessed to have the things that our elders left by the roadside for us to pick up and to carry forward.
Elders have some enormous and wonderful we have terrible experiences of how we survived and raised kids and lived in cities and lived at LCO or other communities, and it was tough. And not that it's easy today. It's not easy, but it's a different kind of situation. But I think, and the era when you talk to the World War II vets, their era in particular was one of really harsh struggle. For us as younger elders, the same is true, that we had to work in settings that weren't always comfortable, where we weren't treated very well sometimes, where they didn't, in settings where being a tribal person was uncomfortable. And so we learned how to survive. We learned how to save money sometimes, how to make sure that our children and now our grandchildren have an opportunity that we didn't have. And it means that they have to be tough. They have to face all kinds of obstacles in their lives. And we hope we're helping prepare them to do that.
Growing up, Sharon Shuck had only known her grandfather, Frank Doolittle, through the stories told by her parents and grandmother. She knew that he was imprisoned in Leavenworth Federal Penitentiary, but there was much she did not know. It is through research that some of the gaps were filled, and it is through her writing that Sharon gives voice to a man she never knew.
It is a summer morning, and Sharon Shuck and her brother are in her dining room looking at several photocopied documents and images that bring to life a person they never knew, their grandfather, Frank Doolittle. It was this unknowing that sparked Sharon's curiosity, and with a bit of encouragement, she decided to write his story, Grandfather's Blood Memories and Unbroken Spirit.
I didn't know much about him. My younger sister did get copies from Leavenworth Prison, 26 pages of my grandfather. I knew he was in Leavenworth, and then she says that I had to write his story. The story has to be told. The Historical Society and the two writers group I belonged to were very supportive, and they did a lot of research for me. Christine Carlson found records, and my cousin found records, boarding school. And that's where it started. And I heard things over the years, you know, about my uncle, how he was treated in boarding school. And my older brother, Fred, knows more because my dad talked to him about boarding school.
I can't say too much about my grandfather's experience in the boarding school, but I do know my father talked about the boarding school. He was down at Hayward, and so was his brother, Joe. Joe was 2 years older than my father, and he was a little bit bigger. He was a big man. They were milking cows in the barn, and Joe was carrying the milk to the creamery or wherever, and the sidewalk was made out of wood boards, and he fell through and spilled the milk. Well, they beat Joe, and my dad said he could hardly walk because it hit him along the legs. That boarding school, it was bad.
Sharon found out that their grandfather Frank was actually at 3 other boarding schools in addition to the one in Hayward, Wisconsin. Through her research, she found other facts about Frank Doolittle, but those also raised more questions.
The sister school in Odena, Flandreau, and then Carlisle, where he was a runaway. He was 18. The records show that he was in the 4th grade. I don't know if that's true. That's just what the papers say. How he made it back from Pennsylvania to Bad River, I don't know. Then we found the records that he was sent to Leavenworth for selling liquor on the Sanborn Bad River Reservation at a saloon. And he was sent to prison there, and the saloon guy was only fined $50. Liquor was not allowed on the reservation. There was a major crime act in 1895, and at that time he was not a U.S. citizen.
Sharon's book would not have been written if it were not for alcohol. My grandmother did make mention about when she left him that he was not good to her. He was not a kind man. My father was telling me that when he was, I can't remember, maybe 5, I would think, when she left Frank Doolittle, and they came by buckboard from Bad River up to Cloquet in a buckboard, in a horse. That's a long way. There was no road. It was a trail.
The book is written as if Frank Doolittle is telling it. It is in his voice. It is speculative on Sharon's part, as she does not know if the words in the book were spoken by her grandfather. That did not deter her, and it is through her book that she expresses the many truths of Native life, the good and the bad, during a time of great change across Indian country.
Speaking with our hands, ducking from the black robes, the storytelling we hear from the elders, they say, Indian children are taken from the village, sent off to Catholic schools many miles from the reservation to learn the English ways, plow fields, go to mass, serve the priests. Some children never come home to their people. One person told me it had to be the proper English, but he was only in the 4th grade, and I'm sure he was out in the field, and he didn't know the proper English back then. The voice just came out. It was very unique. I was speaking the old res way, and it's almost poetic the way I didn't realize I was doing all of that. Some of the things were coming easy, but some things were very hard to write. There were a lot of tears shed when I was writing it, where I didn't know where the words were coming from. And my older brother says, he's telling you what to write. Some of those words just flowed, you know, one word after another. I need to learn a lot more. You know, I'm 80 years old, and this is my first book, and I'm amazed.
For more information about Native Report or the stories we've covered, look for us on the web at nativereport.org, on Facebook, and on YouTube.
Thank you for spending this time with your friends and neighbors across Indian Country. I'm Rita Aspinwall.
And I'm Ernie Stevens. Join us next time for Native Report.
Rita Aspinwall is an enrolled member of the Fond du Lac Band of Lake Superior, Chippewa, and is an ICWA social worker with Fond du Lac Social Services. Ernie Stevens is a member of the Oneida Nation of Wisconsin and is a film and television producer. Production of Native Report is made possible by grants from the Blandin Foundation, the Duluth Superior Area Community Foundation, and the Shakopee-Mdewakanton Sioux Community.